New World Aeternum has come a very long way since its initial release. Once a bug-filled mess with no true identity, poor progression, lack of content, and an overall annoying grind, has turned into a pretty fun mmorpg, or action RPG, because they rebranded it last year, even though it's the same game. But regardless, Amazon Game Studios has proven that they continued to listen to the players over the last 4 years, and they've really poured their heart into the game to make it become what it is today. A lot of people have initially written it off, but I think now could be the time for people to get back into it. Over the last few years of trying to bring New World up to a better standard, Amazon Game Studios seems to have put a lot of focus into fixing the broken progression and early leveling in introductory zones, leaving much to be desired when it comes to endgame content, which isn't really a bad thing. If you played at launch, you'll remember how bad some of those zones felt, and how much content felt like it was just copy-paste with no real connecting tissue. As I showed in my review video, the questing from 1 to 65 is significantly better than it has been in the past, but the biggest concern you still see these days is the fact that you can run out of things to do pretty quickly once you hit level 65. With Season 10 and the introduction to the Nighthaven zone, things are about to change on the endgame front, so much so that you'll really want to stock up on that rogue energy using code RICHIESH at checkout for 20% off to help you get through all of this new content. They have some new wrapped shakers coming out that you can pre-order, some not as new wrapped shakers that I like more, and tons of flavors in 3 formulas focused on energy for the grind, hydration so you don't die on the grind, and chill to help you unwind after the grind. With all that rogue energy that you're about to buy, you're probably wondering, is Nighthaven going to deliver enough endgame content to get me through and to bring new life into New World Aeternum and keep people engaged long enough until that next big content drop? Well, New World did just drop a very in-depth developers update covering all things Season 10, including a new season pass which has 4 different armor sets and a fox mount, which is pretty cool, even if the fox looks like it has some rabies. Within the Nighthaven zone itself, this is one of the largest zones to date, even bigger than Brimstone Sands, and with a zone of this size, it will need to be filled with content as you level from 65 to 70. The aesthetic of this zone is very gothic horror, there's tons of elevation to it, and you'll find large pine tree forests, massive castles with multiple levels with hidden rooms to explore, underground dungeons, scary spider caves, and what they're calling the Underworld, an area underneath Nighthaven that takes you on a Souls-like journey. When you get into this area, you will come across shadow enemies. These guys have no health bar and no nameplates and will be pretty hard to notice as you explore the Underworld looking for new collectibles, crafting materials, and hidden secrets. There are also underwater areas that allow you to swim under the water and explore these different spots while facing obstacles. It's really kind of fun to see underwater content in a game that refused to add swimming the first 3 years of its life. I feel like it's just kind of funny. But the zone is also filled with what they called gimmicks. Gimmicks is basically an in-house word they use for interactables. Throughout the zone, you'll find jump pads that allow you to get a higher location and find secrets within the map. We already saw these new jump pads in the Outpost Rush map preview they did last week. There are also tons of interactables in the environment that'll change your playstyle when taking on new mobs. These include things like chandeliers that you can shoot down and use to your advantage, throwables including torches that you can use to burn spider and rat's nests, and hidden rooms that you'll need to discover. Not exactly game-changing for an RPG in general, but it's something that's pretty new to New World, and it gives you a bit more reason to study your environment instead of just rushing through. The collectibles I mentioned earlier include what are called Arcana Terra. These are 22 unique tarot cards, like the ones sent to various content creators, hidden through the zone of Nighthaven. Collecting these cards will gain you access to what are called tarot towers, along with allowing you to unlock elite chests for more loot depending on the card combinations. Nighthaven also brings a new raid called the Isle of Night, which has 3 bosses and is going to be in similar length to the Gorgon raid. The raid is set on an isolated island surrounded by mist, where players will start on the docks to this island and fight their way up to a fortress tower where you will face the final boss. The first of 3 bosses was revealed to us, and his name is the Jester, whom is said to be one of the most puzzling bosses they've had so far. He moves around in 3 different areas and will take a lot of coordination within your raid to take down. The thing I am personally most excited for though are what are called Catacombs. These are procedurally generated dungeons for up to 3 players that have you taking on up to 6 bosses at a time, and then extracting the loot that the bosses drop. Every time you jump in, the dungeon will be completely different, but you will only have 30 minutes to explore and fight these 6 bosses. Once the first boss is defeated, You could back out and begin the extraction process then and not risk taking on the latter bosses, but the later the boss, the better the gear that's going to be dropped, and every time you kill a boss, the next boss grows stronger and more challenging to defeat. With the increased challenge, you will find what are called ascensions, which are basically character upgrades within the dungeon, granting you health and damage increases. There are also 18 different aspects that you can come across that basically give you utility abilities to change up the role of your character. This is because they aren't locking Catacombs to the holy trinity of heals, tank, and DPS. When you queue up, you could be with 3 DPS or 2 healers and a tank, or any other combination, and these ascensions will allow you to take on various roles that you're not normally filling, making your damaging attacks heal players or causing you to become more tanky in certain situations, really changing up the gameplay. What I think is really going to get most players excited though, especially those who have been here a while, is the endgame progression revamp. New World is bumping up the gear score to 800 and bringing with it what is called the Umbral system. This system, which is not a crafting system, will allow you to upgrade any armor, weapon, or jewelry that is gear score 700 plus and upgrade that up to 800, including artifacts, and this is done through a new currency that will be rewarded to you throughout your adventures, but there is a cap to it that will limit you to 5 upgrades per week. But that's not all. The attribute system is being reworked, so now the only way you're going to gain attributes is through leveling and consumable food. With this change, they've lessened the total amount of attributes you can get, but they also adjusted the scaling on all weapons to now scale with 2 attributes instead of 1, which will allow many more build combinations when it comes to selecting your weapons. They also got rid of the hardy perk, meaning that anyone can now dodge without this perk, regardless of your armor classification, but the amount of dodges depends on heavy, medium, or light armor. Overall, this is probably one of the most impactful updates that New World has given us since launch. They have finally gotten that new player experience in the good spot with New World Aeternum launching last year, and now they can continue to expand off that foundation starting with Nighthaven. This momentum we're seeing could just be due to the fact that the former game director, which a lot of the community blamed for New World's failures, was moved on to a different project, or maybe Amazon Game Studios is finally just getting into the rhythm and really responding to what players want to see in New World Aeternum. But will it be enough to bring players back long term? New World seems to trend, and it'll gain a decent amount of players at a launch of a significant update, such as Brimstone Sands, or the Rise of the Angry Earth, or New World Aeternum, and then that number drops right back down into the 8 to 10,000 range, and they can't seem to get out of that. And part of that is just due to the fact that players run out of things to do. I think what Amazon is doing with this season is amazing, and it is adding a ton of cool stuff to the table with gear sets, repeatable content, and collectibles to find. And while all of that is great, Amazon Game Studios does have a history at being pretty slow when it comes to delivering new engaging content into the game. And they really use the season passes as a crutch to keep people coming back, but after a while, those passes just get kind of boring and repetitive. The New World team needs to build off the momentum they are creating with Nighthaven and give players more than one major content update a year if they want to maintain a larger player base. People don't want to progress through the season and then have to wait 10 months for the next major update. I'm crossing my fingers that Nighthaven is just the beginning and Amazon Game Studios will finally be able to keep the content flowing, adding more and more to the end game so more and more players come to Aeternum, make it their home, and stick with it for the long run.